joining us today. Thank you. I want to welcome each and every one of you for being with us this morning for those who are on the western side of the world, and evening for those who are in the eastern side of the world. It is wonderful to have this session again. We've been having this for the last 4 months, I believe, something like that. And today we have quite an exciting guest who will be speaking to us today that we'll be having a conversation with. As we get started, I encourage each one of you to just tell us where you are, where you're joining us from, so that we have an idea. Just post that on our Facebook right there where you're watching from. Dr. Chenail and myself, we are on Zoom to have this conversation on publishing in Scopus Indexed Journal, and we'll be focusing specifically on the qualitative report. For those who have attended any of my trainings on qualitative research, the primer training, you have heard me talk about the mother of all qualitative research journals, and that is the qualitative report. And today we happen to have the founding editor, the chief editor of this qualitative report. And that's Dr. Ronald Chenail, who is joining us from here in the United States. I got the privilege of meeting him, I think it was 2018, January 2018. I went to his office and we lost track of time. I mean, you know, he's somebody who is extremely passionate about qualitative research, and no wonder why he is the founding chief editor of the Qualitative Report. So let me just quickly introduce him to you, and then we'll get started immediately with our questions, our conversation. And if you have a question, please make sure you post that on our Facebook right there where you're watching from. I see quite a number of people have joined us. I can see that here on the Facebook. But if you have a question, please post it there. But before even the question, please tell us where you're joining us from, so that we have an idea of where people are joining us from. So let me introduce to you our speaker for today. Dr. Ronald Chenail is a co-editor-in-chief of the Qualitative Report, and as I mentioned, he's the founding chief editor of the Qualitative Report, the journal that he founded in 1990 as the first open access multidisciplinary qualitative periodical in the world. Ron has produced over 140 publications, including 9 books, and given over 200 formal academic presentations at conferences and meetings. That I happened to attend some of his talks recently. Attended the Qualitative Report, the conference, and it was just fantastic. His newest book, and we're going to talk about that just briefly today, Engaging Students in Socially Constructed Qualitative Research Pedagogies, co-edited with Janet Richards and Audra Skukua-Kaite, was published by Braille in 2022, so that was just last year. He is also Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Professor of Family Therapy at Nova Southeastern University, and that is in Florida. That's a state that both of us happen to share, except that right now both of us are outside of state. I'm in Maryland and he is in Massachusetts. But that's a place that we both share. Florida is the state that we both share. So with this, I want to welcome you, Dr. Chenail. Thank you so much for creating time to be with us this morning here in the US, and for speaking to us. So I want to get started immediately. You are one of the pioneers of qualitative research through the publication of TQR, or the Qualitative Report. What made you embrace qualitative research?
Well, first, thank you for having me, and welcome everybody. It's interesting with my co-editors, Sally St. George and Dan Wolf, and one of my former students, Dragana Illich. We just finished a chapter for a forthcoming book on postmodern family therapy, and we wrote the book on postmodern therapy research. So I've been kind of retracing this a little bit. So back in 1986, I started my doctoral program in family therapy at Texas Tech. And Texas Tech was one of the places that was, you could learn these postmodern therapies, narrative therapy, solution-focused brief therapy. They weren't called postmodern therapies then. That's how they referred to these many years later. And it was a unique place because because of the way that those therapists approach their clients, curious about what the client, not using a bunch of tests and quantitative data to learn about their problems, but learning more qualitatively from them, and also studying the talk. And so there were the quantitative classes, but they also start offering qualitative classes. So I learned ethnography and grounded theory and went over to the speech program and learned discourse analysis and conversation analysis. And my dissertations was one of the first. I started it there at Texas Tech, and my professor moved to Florida, so I kind of followed him. And so my dissertation was using a type of discourse analysis that he had developed to study family therapy. And so that's how it started. Started that, and then when I moved to Florida, we started a family therapy program there and built it on those two foundation, the postmodern therapies with the qualitative research, and that's how it started.
Interesting. You know, as you're sharing the background being in another field than qualitative research, of course, at that time, qualitative research, I think, was not a field. No, it was not. It's not just thinking. It was not a field yet. You know, this connects directly to a study that I'm currently working on, where it looks like certain fields seem to lend themselves much better with qualitative research than other fields. And I think in your case, this was something that was much closer to qualitative research than quantitative research. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, there definitely seemed to be a lot of synergy between the two. And it's really sort of the basic, I get fancy talk about epistemology and all that kind of stuff, but it was really the valuing of the perspective of others, that they were the experts. And you're right. At that time period, you saw qualitative research in nursing because the notion of care, that's a very qualitative distinction. How does the patient, care? And even if you use on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? They ask you to describe your symptoms. And so that was definitely there, and also in education. And they had what they called their paradigm wars between all of that. But those were the first two, and I think social work to a lesser extent. But it was fascinating that it was a battle in the family therapy community. Certainly was a battle in clinical psychology in those areas, because it was very well entrenched. You had pockets like at Duquesne with phenomenology there. You had some pockets. So I find it very, I guess, pleasing, somewhat surprising that the American Psychological Association now has one of the best series of qualitative research books, that wasn't the case. And so, but now you see definitely business is such a big area, the notions of brand and customer loyalty, and certainly the notion of culture. And so you saw those things happening, and then it happened in the computer technology areas, the user experience and those sorts of things. And then it just became very, very popular from that point. But that was not the case in the late 80s, early 90s. We were talking before you all came on about qualitative research focused conferences. You didn't see that. And I used to get whiplash going to conferences when I hear the word qualitative. And what are you saying? And kind of flock to that area. So it definitely was, we were a bit in the margins at that point, but certainly I would say most professions and disciplines, that's not the case anymore.
That's correct. I remember when I started my work in Asia in 2011, it was just like that. Go to conference and everything was quantitative. And when you finally hear the word qualitative research, I said, okay, tell me more about that. And now it has changed. We see a lot more.
Another crazy person like me.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's go to the next question. And the next question, I got to have the full answer to this question when I visited you at your office, but we will not have the time for that. We will not have 2 hours for that. So it will be a shortened version of it. How did you come up with the idea of launching the first ever qualitative research journal?
Well, there were some in existence prior to ours. There was one in education, and SAGE had just launched Jan Morris's qualitative health research. And so I had again the main journals. It was still quite a challenge to get published. But my interest is that my friends and my network cut across different disciplines and different professions. So I proposed back in the 89, I guess it was, to SAGE to create a journal that was across multiple disciplines. And we went through the process and had a lot of big name people said, what a great idea. And then at the last, we went through so many approval processes. And then Sage says it was going to be too expensive to do it because they'd have to send their representatives to too many conferences to build up a subscriber base. It was going to be a paper journal, and that was the gist. So I said, well, geez, I understand that, but I do think there's a need for this kind of journal. And so started printing little paper versions of this in every conference I would go to, because I was presenting these conferences to build the degree programs and to recruit faculty and to recruit students. And so I'd go there and I say, can I pass out my little journal? And I'd pass it around. And then at Nova University, we were very early into online learning. And so we were putting our pages on the web. And so I talked to our tech people about distributing the journal through what was called Gopher Space. It was like a file transfer protocol that you go up, you click, and you download the paper. And the guy in the lab said, this World Wide Web's going to be a big thing. I said, okay. He said, and he taught me programming, HTML programming. So I would by hand program each article and put it up online. And that's how it started. And it just kind of grew from there. And I always say that with traditional journals had a specific community, like an association of chemists or whatever. And then that community would launch their journal. In the case of TQR and other online journals, the journal launches the community. And that's how it started.
Wow, that's interesting to hear the beginnings, the very beginnings of the journal, that you had to even print something very small. And I think right now, if you had to print it, you'll spend so much money on printing because there's so many articles. And that leads me to the next question. What are some of the facts about TQR today? Where are you? How many publications a year? How many issues? How many countries? Things like that. What are some of the things we need to know? I know it's a Scopus Indexed Journal. I knew that when we published our special issue with that from the Accra. But what are some of the things that are just the major highlights of the journal right now?
Well, it's overwhelming. We get every month, last month we got almost 90 new submissions last month alone. Back when we started, we were lucky to get 90 for the whole year. And so it just, people, I've got to remember back then, something that was online and open access was suspicious. And that's why Scopus is important, because that provides third-party recognition and validation of your work. And for authors, it means it's easier for readers to find your papers and to read them and cite them. So from that, those number of papers, and we've published papers from authors from 106 different countries. And certainly it's seen over the years, we're very popular in the Philippines, in Indonesia, Malaysia, Nepal, all over the world. I mean, certainly South America as well. We do get some submissions in Spanish. We don't advertise that we do in other languages, but we have a diverse editorial board. And but with the new translation software, it's pretty easy to, people are doing the same thing. They're reporting the findings of their qualitative research studies. And there's a particular structure to that. So it does translate well. So it's easy to do that. But every day, between 2,000 and 3,000 individual papers are downloaded around the world. Last year, we had over, I think, 23,000 for the year. I'm looking at my numbers over here. Between Facebook and Twitter,
Sure.
we have over 13,000 followers. We have almost 9,000 subscribers. And so we publish 12 issues a year. And every Monday, which pretty soon Adam Rosenthal will be posting a little note, the 4 new papers for July. So each week we publish 4 papers. So some months we publish 16 papers, some months we publish 20 papers. And so that's kind of the numbers. I'm trying to think any other kind of numbers. So I guess I would talk about a little bit why do we get that many papers? Why are we popular? Because certainly there are other choices
Yes.
now. There's many more choices. I think what our brand is, or what people know us as that from a publication process, we're open access. From an editorial process, we are what I would call developmental. And by that, I mean is that we try to work with authors to help them to improve their writing and their reporting about or of qualitative research. And so we get lots of papers that need lots of work. And so we have what's called a manuscript development program. And so where other journals, they might celebrate that they have an acceptance rate of only 10% or 20%. We're kind of the opposite, maybe only 20% or 30% of our papers, we don't work with the authors. In that case, it's like they submit a paper that's not qualitative. It's more of a commentary, or that it just doesn't fit the editorial mission, or the paper is in such lack of development. And so what we've done, we give a very nice, detailed, very prescriptive review about, here's how to fix your abstract, here's how to write this, and so forth. And then we let them know that if they can work on that on their own, they can always submit it as a new submission. So of those papers, those 80 papers, we're probably working on 50 or 60 of them enter our queue. And then so it takes quite a while to get through that. It's a peer review, but it's not blind. Everyone knows who everyone is. And then we give our comments and help the authors to improve it. But it may take 3 or 4 revisions. And so it's not unusual for it to be over a year between initial submission and publication. I mean, if the paper is really good, it's submitted maybe 30, 45 days and it's done. But most of our papers take 2 or 3 or more revisions, and probably about a year. So when someone says, how long will this take? I'll say, well, how good is the paper? And we'll go from there.
Thank you so much. And what Dr. Chenail is talking about, I have experienced it personally as the author and also as a member of one of the peer reviewers. And that's what I really love about the qualitative report, because the kind of support you get here, you don't get that anywhere else. And if I'm not mistaken, if things have not changed, publication there is free. There's no publication.
Oh, no, we added a fee, I guess it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Okay.
Now, we thought that would deter people. It's $500 if the paper is accepted. And we certainly waive the fee or discount it depending upon the circumstance of the author. But we thought that might, we hate to do it, but there's, just like with Scopus alone, you've got to prepare, you've got to submit to Scopus. We promote the papers and that, but the submissions went up.
Seriously, that's very strange. That's very strange. But I'm glad to hear that depending on what people are, there may be some subsidy for that, because right now you had mentioned the Philippines, that there's quite a number of people submitting manuscripts from there or downloading manuscripts from there. And I understand very well, because Accra has been very, very active there. And so a lot of people will tell them about the qualitative report. What other information should anyone interested in publishing TQR know, other than we have talked about the support, excellent support that you get in the publishing process, and of course there's now a fee. What other information, if somebody wants to prepare manuscript to submit there, what should they keep in mind?
Yeah, well, the first thing would be is read the journal. I always think it's somewhat, sometimes it's frustrating, but sometimes it's humorous. I got one the other day saying, I have a paper, it's the methodology is interpretative phenomenological analysis, and it's about people's experiences with COVID. Do you publish that kind of paper? And I'd say, well, if you read the journal. So it is a bit annoying, because you're putting these papers out and you hope people are reading them. And it's nice that people want to send me email. I'm not that lonely, but it's nice that people send me email. But there's nothing that replaces reading the journal, especially the most recent articles, and getting an idea as to the format, read it critically. I mean, not just reading it because it's in your content area, but take a look at how that's done. So that's number one, read the journal. Number two is that we've published a lot of information about what we look for in papers. We have a thing that's called TQR Ready Review comments. And these are the exact same comments that we use in the papers. So for example, the abstract should not be abstract. You should be covering the same elements in the paper in the same order in your abstract. So oftentimes when we get an abstract and it's very disorganized, we can pretty much assume the rest of the paper is disorganized. So we encourage people to use those comments, to read them, and to try to put their paper in the best, report that they can do. But we also realize that maybe the amount of mentoring or the amount of resources that people have could be limited no matter where they are. And so we do understand that, but that's the thing that I would suggest most. Read the journal, see if we're publishing the kinds of articles that you're envisioning for your paper, and then look at some of the tools that we've provided. And again, that may be overly abstract to put all these things in place. So I know one of the other questions you asked about books to read. So when I'm teaching this, or when we're looking at this, it says for references, so why qualitative research? So maybe one good book on what qualitative research is, and then why phenomenology. Maybe read one good book on phenomenological research, and then why interpretative phenomenological analysis. We'll read one of Jonathan Smith's books. So minimum of 3 books will get you through those questions. Why is my study qualitative? Why is it phenomenology? Why is it interpretative phenomenological analysis? And that's really good. You let me know as a reader how you thought it through, how you justified each of your choices. But that's the kind of thing that you would get from reading our journals, to see how people construct the argument or the rationale why they're doing qualitative research for their particular study.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Chenail. I'm smiling a lot because what you're talking about right now is something I was talking about in the Philippines last week. I was in the Philippines, Sultan Kudarat State University. I see some of you have joined from that university, and I was saying the same thing that Dr. Chenail has talked about. How in the world do you submit a manuscript to a journal and you have not read the guidelines for that journal? I mean, right there, you are preparing for trouble. Before you submit to any journal, whether it's TQR or any other, please read the editorial guidelines. They will tell you exactly how to prepare the manuscript, and that gives you a much better chance of getting accepted. I see you want to add something there.
Oh, you have to embrace your inner ethnographer.
Yeah.
Each journal is its own little culture, and look at the artifacts, get an idea of their customs and things like that, and you'll be a lot better off. Read who's on the editorial board. Where do they come from? And start to say, okay, it's a bit of a cross-cultural examination, but to see whether or not this particular journal will meet your needs. And there's a financial consideration, there's a time consideration, but at the end of the day, there's a fit between what you're trying to write and what we publish.
Very well said. Thank you so much. I see that we have only one question. Keep those questions coming. We're going to take them after I'm done with the questions I've prepared for Dr. Chenail. We're going to the next question. How different is it to publish in a Scopus Indexed Journal from other regular journals?
Well, I mean, in some cases, it may not seem like a big difference, but in others, it is. And so with a Scopus journal, you have to submit your information, and it's reviewed, for a number of different qualities. So a Scopus approved journal, or a Scopus accepted journal, the way that's hard to say, is that there is a persistence. That's first, is that you've been in existence, and that you are you're going to continue to be around, because they want to make sure you as the author, that you're submitting your paper to a place that's going to be there for a while. And so for a lot of the Scopus journals, the Elsevier and so forth and so on, they're published by professional publication places like Routledge or Sage or folks like that. So there's some continuity to it. So we're published by a university that gives us credibility. But if we weren't, Scopus would be telling you as a potential submitter that there's some consistency and sustainability to the journal. So we've been around, quite a few years. The second is in terms of the legitimacy of the journal, as to whether or not there's actually a true editorial review process versus something that would be more predatory, pay your money and become published. Then would be a quality in terms of the quality of the articles that are published, and also that people cite the articles that are published in there. So that's one of the key indicators, is that are people citing what's published, and that gives an indication to Scopus that this is something worthy of bringing into their community. And so again, it's really about making the best investment. Almost thinking about like a company being rated by a bonding company as being a 5-star, a AAA type of thing. So what Scopus is saying is that this company, this journal, is sound. That's basically what it comes down to. And then what they help to do is that they then help to promote when the paper is published. Now, I will tell you, they may be a little bit slower than us. So when authors, when they get their paper published and they get their DOI number, they think it's going to be in Scopus. It may take a while for it to go from publication into Scopus, because what we do is every Monday, I send it to the person at the library that uploads the information to Scopus. But it may take a bit of time before it to actually be active, your paper's DOI to be registered in Scopus. We send it right away. So oftentimes I'll get the author, I check today, okay, I settle down. It may be a little bit for that to do that, but Scopus's imprimatur is very important for anybody looking at a journal to know that the journal is credible, and then it will be a good place for you to send your paper, and will do well by you when we publish it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think this is very good information for the universities. In fact, I was talking to certain universities just a couple of weeks ago, asking, we want to have this journal into Scopus, to be a Scopus Indexed Journal, and you have shared quite very good information there. Now, looking at it from the author's perspective, because there are a lot more journals that are not Scopus Indexed Journals than Scopus Indexed Journals. When somebody wants to submit, for example, an article to TQR, which is Scopus Indexed Journal, what should they know as opposed to somebody submitting it to a regular journal that's not Scopus Indexed Journal? What can they expect to be something harder, maybe higher level, to do with a Scopus Indexed Journal when submitting the manuscript, rather than submitting a manuscript to just a regular non-Scopus Indexed Journal?
Well, now, with the journals, there certainly are many factors as to what gets published and so forth. When I started the qualitative report, there was no Scopus, and so what I did was I went through and I looked at other journals that I respected. Some journals that are published by association, some obviously an association and a publisher. I mean, I've been the editor of other journals, and like the Journal of Marital and Family Therapy. That was published by the American Association for Marriage Family Therapy, and then it was acquired by Wiley. So I've worked in both situations: society published or professional publisher published. So what I would do is I would look to say, okay, where are those other journals indexed, regardless of whether they're society or professional? And so then I would read, okay, so what does it take? What do I have to submit? How do I then get the imprimatur of that? So for example, when the Directory of Open Access Journals came out, DOA, Directory of Open Access Journals, OAJ, I submitted the information. And first, it was just like, thank you. Over time, it became just like Scopus. You have to submit all your information. You have to submit who your board is, what is your editorial process, you have a fee and so forth, and then putting it in there. So there's Ulrich, there are many of these other third-party associations where you want to submit your information, go under review, and then hopefully be accepted into their systems. So because people, it's very hard when you look at journals out there. I mean, I'll get stuff all the time saying, we love your work. Can we add you to the journal? And I go, it's a journal in biochemistry. I have nothing to do with biochemistry. Why? Oh yeah, they do qualitative analysis there. I have nothing to do with what you're talking about. Or you'll get these strange titles. We're the Journal of Badminton and Nuclear Physics. I go, what? So that's suspect. Then you go and look to see, has anybody recognized them? And even if they might say Scopus, you got to go to Scopus and check that out. So what it means is that I guess the best word would be is integrity, is the journals have to have a high degree of integrity. and that they are dedicated to doing the best they can for their authors, even if it means rejecting the paper because of the quality of what you're trying to publish. And it's always a challenge. People are very clever with plagiarism. People, all kinds of scientific misconduct. It's like a horror story. And now the generative AI. So it puts a lot of challenge. And I'm guessing as time goes on, these different third parties are going to ask us how we're verifying whether or not the authors are indeed the authors of their papers, and whether they have some sort of control over the intellectual property to be able to put this forth as their own ideas.
Thank you so much. Very well explained there. I'm going to go to the two questions that have come up so far, because I think it's better to capture them now than than later on. So here comes the first one that was posted several minutes ago. Let's see. My research was submitted, and both questions actually, I have faced these questions over the years. They are common questions. My research was submitted to a certain journal, and it's almost 2 years, no answer yet. Can I submit it to another journal for publication?
Okay, so the usual, I guess, etiquette or protocol is that you submit your paper to one journal at a time. So you submit it to but always remember it's your paper. And so at any time during the editorial process, what you need to do is to formally withdraw your paper from the journal. And so then, let's say that the editor's been sick and there's just been all kinds of problems and they are working on it, but you've notified them. So for example, the qualitative report, you can go in and you can click withdrawn. And then there's a note that goes, the editor saying so-and-so has withdrawn their paper. And then you might try to say, oh, it's almost done, but that's your decision. But I would formally withdraw my paper. Now, if they don't have a system where you can click on, then however you submitted the paper to whomever you did, let them know that you are withdrawing your paper. And then then you can clearly say to the next journal that your paper is currently not under review at any other publisher.
That's definitely the same thing. The answer I've given people, it's very unethical to submit your paper to two journals at the same time. And in this case, just as Dr. Chenail has said, if I don't want to get that first publisher involved anymore, I would just write to them and say, well, it's been 2 years. I have followed up. You have not. I want to inform you that I have now withdrawn, if they don't have a place where you can withdraw that, because a TQR for them, TQR has a platform where you can actually do that. And you won't have to do that because they will work with you. But many journals don't have that. And so I would just email them and say, listen, please, at this point, since I have followed up, I have not heard from you, and it's been 2 years, I want to let you know that starting now, I'm withdrawing my manuscript and I'm going somewhere else. All right, here is, so humbled me. Thank you so much for that question. We're going to another question from Pong Pong Manai. It's 2 questions actually in one. How much will it cost to publish in Scopus Journal? That's the first part of the question.
Okay, so Scopus does not determine the article processing fee. And so that is determined by either the journal or the publisher. So without getting overly complicated with this, is that you need to, and so the price can range from a couple $100 to multiple thousands of dollars. And I was looking at Frontiers. Frontier is a new publisher, huge publisher and open access. And they have 4 different categories of papers. They have 3 different categories of countries, and depending upon a regular research paper, that could be $3,000 or $4,000. And so for some folks, if they're funded researchers, their grant allows them to pay for that. So that's part of it, what I think drives up the price. But it's not determined by Scopus, and I don't know if Scopus has any policies regarding the amount for that. So you need to be a smart shopper and to look to see what you can do. So I will have people contact us and saying, can you waive the fee now? And I say, well, this is the process, but this is not pay up front to get published. That's not the way it works. The money for the processing goes to put it up online, to market your paper, to submit to Scopus and so forth. It's a post-acceptance charge. It's not an upfront fee because like Safri and the group, they do that on their own time. And that's why it takes a while to do this, because people are doing it as part of their service to the community. They're not getting paid. And so it can take quite a while to, one, just sign up reviewers, and then to get to them to review and so forth. Some journals give their reviewers a week or two. That's pretty tight. A lot of people say, I can't do it. I'm teaching the semester. I've got others 30 days. But Scopus does not determine the price. The publisher or the individual journal determines that fee. So look carefully. Sometimes it's kind of hard to find it. So in our submission process, you have to click on that, yes, you've read it, that we have a fee. Now, that doesn't mean 6 months later, someone says, what's this fee? Well, remember when you submitted it, you said you knew there was a fee, but we just let people know that. And again, if they cannot pay the fee, I would say probably over half of our papers we publish each month, either the fee has been waived or it's been reduced. And that's really based upon what the authors let us know their circumstances are.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And the second part of the question, actually, you have indirectly addressed it. How do we know that a journal is legitimate? It's not a predatory journal, obviously.
Yeah, it's harder and harder to tell. So, first would be, if you're in the field, it's a little bit easier, but not that you know everybody in the field, but you look at the editorial board, but people can forge that. They can put anybody's names up there. Unless you're constantly Googling yourself, you don't know that. So one would be is that I would say most of the legitimate journals in the world are published either by one of three groups: a professional publishing house like Routledge or the Wileys or Sages of the world. That would be number one. Number two, they would be published through an association or a professional learned society that you recognize, published by the American Psychological Association. The third would be it's published through a university press. So the qualitative report is published by Nova Southeastern University. You can check to see is Nova accredited and so forth and so on. So it takes a few layers to do that. So that's what I would look for first, is that. And as far as the professional publishers, you can always, so I always search when I get something through the internet, like says, and I'll look, so I'll put in, is so-and-so a predatory journal? There are a list of those that are out there. And then you can take a look, and if it says that there's a little bit of, then I would not submit to that journal. So if they don't have one of those first three, and be very careful if you don't recognize the name of the publisher, it may be that the publisher and the journal are one and the same. And that's part of a predatory strategy. But there are credible lists out there that describe whether or not a journal is predatory or not. And just because they charge a fee doesn't mean they're predatory.
Same thing I just said last week. Simply because they charge a fee, like TQR is now charging a fee, does it mean it's predatory? No. Does it mean that any journal that says they are Scopus Index, does it mean that they are actually Scopus Index? No, I always tell people, if they claim to be Scopus Index journal, just go to the Scopus website and look for it there. Because if it's Scopus Index, it will be in the database of Scopus Index journals. There's a quick follow-up question here that came from Uno. May I be clarified with the cloned journals? Cloned journals. I haven't heard that one.
Okay, so that they're representing that they are a journal that they're not. Is that what they mean?
I don't know. I haven't heard that. So if you haven't heard it, I will ask the person who asked the question to elaborate on that.
So one of the things that you want to check, it's basic cybersecurity. Is that if you're not familiar with it, but if you're familiar with it, look carefully as to the email address or the URL. And if it's nothing like or go third party, go to Google or go to your whatever and search for that journal. But clearly if they'll say, oh, the qualitative report is published by Sage, and look at, well, we're not. And if the address says, cyberdeath whatever, don't click on that at all. and go independently and check it out. So, but that's part of a cybersecurity scam to do that. But it's I guess it's kind of a little bit of a Trojan horse kind of thing that you think you're going one way and it's not. So be very careful of something like that, and always check through a third party if you're unsure about that. But yeah, it's very, that a special call, it has nothing to do with the real journal.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And I wanted to add something here. I've met many people who are desperate to publish. And so they're willing to do anything, and they want it to get out as quickly as possible if they can get a place where it says a Scopus Index and it's can be published in 2 weeks, and that's where they want to do these things. Please understand that quality, to me, that's always one of the red flags. There's so many red flags. One of them, if it's only one red flag, is not enough. But if somebody tells you, we can publish your article within 48 hours, do you have journals that do that? Yes, but chances are they're predatory journals. There is a lot more chance with those being predatory journals than being legitimate journals. I've seen a number of them that will say European Journal of this, American Journal of this. And when you look at the location, it has nothing to do with America, or if they say European Journal of this, they don't have any location in Europe. And many of the email addresses are Gmail addresses to contact them, or Yahoo addresses. When I see these things, and usually they have a fee, some will even go to the extent that we make sure that your manuscript is published. When I see the combination of all these things, it's like, wait a minute, something is not right. And so I have been very comfortable publishing with what Dr. Chenail said, university-based journals, big publishers, Sage, Springer, and Routledge, and Cambridge. American Educational Association Research has plenty of journals. They have this ARA open platform where you submit. You don't even have to worry about which journal they will submit, they will publish it in. They are going to be the ones to assign that. And if we are just interested in qualitative research, I will say TQR is your place, especially if you want to learn through the process of your publication. TQR is your place because they will hold your hand. If it is, of course, a qualitative research, the manuscript to start with, they will really work with you hand in hand all the way to publication, back and forth, giving you extensive substantive constructive feedback until you get publication. So don't go out there trying to find journals that nobody even knows about and get yourself published in a predatory journal. Anything you want to add to that before we go to the
another way that they'll do it, they'll say is that our next issue will be published July 5th. Get your paper in today, or in 2 days. It's that amazing that you'll see that. And unfortunately, people get themselves into a situation whether they can't complete their degree program, they're not going to be hired, they're not going to be promoted, whatever. Just don't get yourself into that situation, because that's what the predators are looking for. And I agree so much with you. When time, from the author's perspective, when time is the most critical factor, then quality will suffer. And we'll always say, no, that's not going to work. We can't publish your paper in 48 hours. Sorry. And it's really sad then that people have invested all their time and effort in hopefully producing a credible research report. Your baby deserves the best home, and you don't want to send your baby to a place that's won't care for it, won't do the best by it.
That's correct. That's correct. Thank you so much. I'll give you just 30 seconds to go on with the question. The person who had asked the cloned journals has now expanded on that the cloned journals are journals with the same name. How will we know which is legitimate? I didn't know this is happening. Basically, we may have another person come up with the same journal, the qualitative report, but it's not the correct, it's not you, it's somebody else. I never knew these things are happening.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Wikipedia, I mean, there's third parties that you can look at to see what it says about the journal. And so for, anybody could put your ISSN number up there. I guess they can do it where it looks like the looks like the real journal. In the case, I mean, my email, directly contact the editor. We've not had that happen with us. I mean, I guess knock on wood that hasn't happened. I've seen places where people have wholesale taken a web resource of ours and put it on their page too. I've seen people do that. Not very happy with that. But yeah, I guess that's the thing, is to be aware as to who you're actually dealing with. And it's always like whether you can go through some third party for example, if we're published by Nova Southeastern University, you can go to the Nova Southeastern University site and find us there. And that we haven't been, as far as I know, we haven't been overtaken by some third party pirate. So we should be okay. So just be careful. I think that it's a great question, because just being aware that someone has done that or is doing that. And so that's what I'm going to do. We can often want to have Adam do a search to see where the qualitative report pops up where it doesn't belong.
Thank you so much. I didn't know people are going to this extent. This is scary. This is the first time I hear that it's happening. So we have to be very careful. Let's go to something else here. Now that we have addressed all the questions that were raised here, I want to go to this book. Sorry, it is pixelated a bit. This is your newest book. Can you tell us a bit about it and what it is about, and how people can get a copy of this?
Okay, yeah, this was Janet and approached me. Janet and both Janet and Audra are on our editorial board, like you are, and they both are in departments of education, and so they asked if I'd be interested in being a part of this. And it's not too unlike going back to the postmodern therapy and postmodern research, how they fit together. And so the notion is that a lot of qualitative research is constructed from a social constructionist or constructionist perspective, but it's also a model of teaching. And so we put those two ideas together, is that how do you teach qualitative research in the same theoretical orientation as your model of teaching. So your model of teaching and how qualitative. So for example, qualitative research is done relationally with the participants. How do the students work relationally with each other to produce the work? So it's an edited book. We each wrote our own kind of introductory chapters, and then there's different sections where we have contributions from a lot of TQR authors, as well as other authors from around the world, that talk about examples, how they have incorporated whether it's social construction or radical constructivism, in terms of how they do the research with how they teach how to do the research. So it's the kind of a synchronistic kind of feeling that way. So it just came out, like you said, end of last year. It's available through Amazon. You can find it through there. You can directly through Brill, where it's published. For a while, it wasn't on Amazon. I don't know what the deal was, but for at least, even when I search me, it takes me a while to find this book on my pages. So please look for it. And so it just came out, and Janet and Audra had done a great job. What my main contribution was to identify folks that I thought were writing really interesting things in this area. And so then I invited them, as well as folks that Janet and Audra suggested. And I think it really came out really as a book that if you're a bit challenged how to teach these things to your students, it helps them to learn exactly in the same way as they would be practicing these skills in these areas. So hopefully, because sometimes, there's all different models of pedagogy. There's, the flip the classroom and the sage on the stage and all those kind of things. But what I'm really impressed with the authors in this book is how they work with the students. Not only learn from the teacher learns from the students, and the students learn from each other. And just like you learn from your research participants, you look for the other, you remain curious. That's what we try to present in this book.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So people, you can get that book in different places. You can even Google that, and it will take you to the different places where you can buy that. So that's good. It's good that is available on Amazon, and it sounds pretty interesting. I should get a copy myself. Probably a digital one. I hope the Kindle version is there. The next question that has just come up, I was going to talk about this information later on, but since it has just come up from Pong Pong Man I, who says, do you have books referring to guide on publication? And I had prepared that. So let me just share that information with you. And Dr. Chenail can add anything that is not here. Here is, and I think the person who asked the question is in the Philippines. Here is the book that we published last year, the Sage Handbook of Quality Research in the Asian Context. We have one chapter specifically on how to prepare your manuscript for publication. And one book that has that I published in 2019, that's the second edition. The first one was 2014. This takes you from selecting your title all the way to publication, all the different steps, working with the editors, working with the feedback, how to structure your paper, whether it's qualitative, quantitative, or theoretical paper, and so on. You can get just step by step, and the number of illustrations that you'll find there. So these are resources that I would encourage you to consider. I was planning to show this later on, but since you have asked the question, I feel it is the right time to get that. Both books are available online. The publisher of Perish Fear No More, this one is available in the Philippines in hard copy. If you want to just order it within the Philippines, send me a message on Messenger, and I'll send you the information. We ship through LBC. From Cavite, but we ship nationwide in the Philippines. So if you want to get that within the Philippines, you can do that, or you can get an electronic copy of the book on Amazon. Let's go to another question, Dr. Chenail. We have only 8 minutes to go. We still have 2 or 3 questions. What other tips can you share about publishing qualitative research articles? You have shared a lot of them. Is there something else that you feel you may share before we talk about the TQR conference?
Well, the one type of paper that we get is very problematic, and we call it the in-between paper. You know, the basic paper is, I've done a study, here is my method, here are my results. And you've conducted your study because there's a gap in the literature. We didn't know about, Philippine teachers and so forth. You make the case. The other type of paper is, hey, phenomenology is great. Let me show you how I did it in the study. Well, that means half your paper is talking about your research, and the other half of the paper is the study, and it gets to be like 50 or 60 pages long. Don't do that kind of paper. If you've done something innovative using phenomenology, then it's like, here is the opportunity or the challenge with phenomenology. Here's my solution. And then just give me a brief example, hopefully examples, how you've done it, or just do the straight report. When people say that I'm doing the study because qualitative research is great, that's a warning sign. You don't have to justify that anymore. You justify the methodology based upon the purpose of the research. You want to discover the experiences of the fill in the blank. Phenomenology is great for that. Here you go. So those are the papers I would say definitely want to avoid. I think what happens with sometimes is people are trying to get 2 or 3 papers out of the same project. Publish the results of your dissertation, your thesis, or your study. Get that one out first. And then if you've done something methodologically innovative, not just that you use something that's already been used. And then the other one is this. I just did my first study. Wow, did I learn a lot? Okay, that's very important to you, but everybody else that did their first study, they've had that same experience. Unless there's something extremely unique about your experience, just save that to tell your grandkids, because it's not something that really is going to help other people. Unless because of your unique situation, you had to come to a unique solution that would make it publishable. So that's what I would evaluate. Publish your results first and foremost. And if you've done something innovative, qualitative research-wise, we'd love those papers. Those other ones, we don't really publish those, and it takes quite a while, especially those ones where they combine 2 together, try to figure out how to separate them, and maybe send us 2 different papers, but publish your results first.
Thank you so much. You have actually addressed a question that was coming from Carmela de Makmat, who was actually one of our contributors for this Sage Handbook, I believe. Your question has just been answered. You can definitely have different articles from your dissertation. I know that some journals do not allow that. Personally, I've never seen any problem with that. that you can have, for example, the findings, as he has explained, you can have the findings published first, and you can have maybe something methodological that that you came up with that is unique, innovative. You can have that as another publication. Some journals will tell you they cannot do that, but personally, have never seen any problem with that. Given that it is your work, you are not using somebody else's work, it is your work, you have worked on that, and you know that if you try to put everything in one article, it will be too long, or you will not really capture everything. So I think Dr. Chenail has
I agree with you,
that.
absolutely. These people come
Yeah.
up with these rules, like, where did this come from? I have
I
no idea where it came
know.
from. But certainly, like, if your dissertation is an applied dissertation, and in chapter 5, you discuss the implications of this. Well, talking about to therapists, say therapist, here is a way to, that's a wholly different paper. It's based upon your research, but it's more of a prescription. It's a different paper. You don't want to get into a situation where you're using a lot of material that you're just plugging in. So you don't want to self-plagiarize. But yeah, there could be a handful of papers that can come out of your dissertation. But first and foremost, publish your results.
Like that. I like that. Okay, let's go to the last question. Because we have only 3 minutes to go. For the next 2 minutes, please tell us about the Qualitative Report Conference. I attended them for my first time this year, last February. It was amazing. When will be the next one? How do we apply? Is there abstract, a call for abstract still ongoing? Can you please talk to us in the next 2 minutes?
Sure. It's the 15th annual conference. We have for most of the lifetime of the conference, it's been in person at Nova Southeastern University's main campus in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, USA. And we went online a couple of times, obviously during COVID. But we're back on campus, and it's February 29th through March 1st, so it would be next February. So the 24. The call for submissions is open. It opened April, and it will continue on through, I'm trying to see what the actual deadline is on it, but there's plenty of time to submit. The address is, the deadline is the end of this month, July 31st, 2023 is the deadline for submission. If you go to tqr.nova.edu, and you'll find there that we have a conference page, and you can click on there, and all the directions for submitting your information can be found there. So you have almost 30 days to submit, and there's a focus on the journal for the conference, but you don't have to be, your paper does not have to be on that. You can do present your paper. You can put a group together of like-minded folks that present on a theme. We call those panels. So you have different options. So go to the website, tqr.nova.edu, and all the directions you could find there. And hopefully you'll come join us next year in Fort Lauderdale.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chenail. And I have posted that website, website on Facebook. So please check that out and see if you can come. It would be nice to meet all of you in Florida. It'd be really, really nice. I'm excited. I'm going to definitely attend next year. I was hoping to attend face-to-face this year, and only to discover that I was only online. So I can't wait to go back to Nova Southeastern University to attend this. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Chenail, for sharing your expertise with us. It's just amazing. It's phenomenal to see how time just flies, because you have so much knowledge, expertise, and experience that you share with us, and you are able to share that with us for the last 1 hour. I want to encourage each and every one of us to check Dr. Chenail's books on Amazon. Just Google him, Ronald Chenail. And you should be able to see a lot of his books, other than, in addition to the one that he shared with us. And I wish each one of you a wonderful journey in qualitative research and in the publication. Please watch out for our next Qualitative Research Qualitative Research Connect flyer. We shall have probably end of this month or next month, we'll have another session like this. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Those who are in the Far East and those who are here in the US, we really thank you for taking the time to be with us. And stay in touch. If you want to continue engaging me in this discussion on publication, please feel free, just ask those questions on this platform and I'll be able to get back to you. Dr. Chenail, again, thank you so much. If you have any final word, you can do that right now for the last 30 seconds and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. The resources that you put up there, I think exactly what people need. It's important to understand, what the qualitative research. There are some differences around the world, and it's very important to your SAGE handbook is a really good one, and read the how-to book, because the steps are clear. You just have to follow them, and hopefully look forward to getting a submission or two from you all at TQR, and seeing your name in the press would be fantastic. And again, thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Everyone, have a nice day here on the West, and good night to those who are in the Far East. Thank you so much for coming.